What's good, everybody? Old Papa G here. And in today's video, we're going to be covering Priest in a PvP guide, of course. We're going to be covering Discipline, and we're going to be covering Shadow Priest. I'm not going to be covering Holy, because right now they're the worst healer in the game. There's really no reason for me to get into it. I know I was supposed to be making a video every day for you guys. I know I've missed the last 4 days. I had stuff come up in my home life that I had to take care of. And due to that, I'm going to make an abundance of videos today to make up for it, covering the rest of the classes that I need to cover. So I promise that content will be out by the end of the day. I'm going to start off with Discipline, and the things that we're going to be covering in this is going to be talents, PvP talents, Covenants, Conduits, Soulbinds, and Legendary item, and as well as the best chosen race for Priest. Obviously, I already said I'm also going to be covering Shadow in this video. So a quick overview before I get into it. Discipline Priest right now is the best healer in the game. It's very close between them and Resto Druid. In terms of arena, the nod probably goes to Discipline. They have better throughput healing sometimes because Resto Druids deal with HOTS and a lot of instant healing. They struggle with big burst occasionally, not all the time, sometimes. And because of that, they work better with teams that have good off healing. Meaning like a Ret Paladin with Word of Glory, or they work really well with the Shadow Priest, whereas Discipline doesn't really need to worry about the throughput healing as much. So because of that, they're better overall for arena, where the HOTS being spread in RBGs and regular battlegrounds work out better for Resto. Now, that being said, I'm going to go over the talents first, and then the PvP talents, and then I'm going to cover Shadow. So first, Castigation. Penance fires one additional bolt of Holy Light over its duration. Obviously, this is great. You're getting an extra bolt. You're basically going to do Penance every single time the cooldown's over, so every 9 seconds you're getting that additional bolt. I know some people are doing Twist of Fate, which after healing a target below 35% health, you deal 20% increased damage and 20% increased healing for 10 seconds. Now, this is excellent, don't get me wrong, but when you really break it down, what's going to happen more often? This is going to happen more often. This is going to happen every 9 seconds, and you're going to constantly do it off of cooldown. So overall, this will be used more often, and because of that, it's the preferred choice. Now, next, we have Body and Soul. Power Word Shield and Leap of Faith increase your target's movement speed by 40% for 3 seconds. Now, this is excellent, and the reason being, not only are you increasing your own mobility, you're also going to help your allies, especially some classes that lack good mobility, like Red Paladin. So this will help them with that downfall that they have. Next up, we have Power Word Solace. Strikes an enemy with heavenly power, dealing 418 damage and restoring 1% of your maximum mana. 13-second cooldown. Now, that 1% of mana may seem like nothing, but when you're at max level and you have about 30k mana, and you're doing this every 13 seconds, it's going to add up a lot. Sometimes you can really burn through mana, so this will help you. Next up, we have Psychic Voice. Reduces the cooldown of Psychic Scream by 30 seconds. I shouldn't even have to say how good this is. You're going to get your CC more often. You can fear more often. Help your team with extra utility. This is the preferred choice. Next, we have Sins of the Many. Your damage is increased by up to 12%, diminishing for each ally affected by your atonement. Now, obviously, in arena terms, the maximum amount of people that are going to have atonement are anywhere from 2 to 3. So, obviously, the diminishing isn't going to be as much when you're doing Arena. Obviously, in Battlegrounds, it's going to be a little different, but this build is really made for Arena. Next up, we have Purge of the Wicked. This is going to replace your Shadow Word Pain. Cleanses the target with fire, causing 116 fire damage. That's the initial damage. And an additional 765 fire damage over 20 seconds, spread to an additional nearby enemy when you cast Penance. Now, something to be said is when you deal Penance, the majority of the times you're not going to want to do it as a damage move. You're going to want to do it as a healing move because it's pretty much your best healing move in the game for them. So because of that, if everyone already has the dot on them, you're not going to want to put Penance on the enemy target. Obviously, when you're spreading your dots, you will do that. That'll be the exception, especially because you'll have Atonement on everybody, so the dots ticking damage is helping your healing anyway, so this is why this is the preferred choice. And lastly, we have Lenance. Atonement reduces damage taken by 3%. This is great utility for your team because not only is it for yourself, it's anyone that has Atonement. Everybody will always have Atonement up. If you're a good healer, they should always have it up, especially with Power Word Shield that automatically gives it. So, again, this is great utility. Now, that we covered the regular talents, we're going to go over the PvP talents. First up, we have Dome of Light. Reduces the cooldown of Power Word Barrier by 90 seconds. Power Word Barrier reduces the damage taken by an additional 25%. Obviously, this is huge. That's a big damage reduction along with 90 seconds off the cooldown, making you do it more often. People could run to the barrier, so it's a great thing to have. Next up, we have Dark Archangel. It increases your damage and the damage of all allies within your atonement by 15% for 8 seconds. It only has a 1 minute cooldown. That's a big damage increase, especially for bursts of your team, so this is excellent to have. And lastly, we have Trinity. Atonement duration is increased by 15 seconds. That's huge. And healing transferred increased by 20%, but you can only be applied through Power Word Shield. This isn't a big deal. That's the main way that you apply it anyway. Now, Smite, Penance, and Shadow Fiend critical strike chance is increased by 25% chance when you have Atonement on 3 or more allies. Again, in Arena, you should always have it on all your allies, so that critical strike chance will increase. Obviously, when you're dealing more damage, you're getting more healing for your allies. So, that's about it for Discipline Priest. So now that we've covered that, I'm going to go... What the hell? Sorry about that. Now I'm going to go over Shadow. Now, Shadow has seen a slight nerf when it comes to their damage, but they still have really high output damage. It's not anything to really worry about. They probably have the best durability of any caster in the game. They really are beefy with their off heals as well. They're great. So, I wouldn't really worry about that nerf too much. So, with all that, we have Unfurling Darkness. After casting Vampiric Touch on a target, your Vampiric Touch within 8 seconds is an instant cast and deals 689 shadow damage immediately. This effect cannot occur more than 15 seconds. This also works with Damnation. We're going to get into Damnation a little bit later because it's on the bottom here, but that applies all dots at once, which you're always going to use every 45 seconds because it's a really easy way to just apply. So keep that in mind as well. Next, Intangibility. Dispersion heals you for 50% of your maximum health over its duration and has a 30-second reduced cooldown. Obviously, I shouldn't even have to talk about how good Dispersion is. It's basically your immunity. Now that is also giving you all your health back. It's really a great move. Obviously, I think it's even better than Paladin Bubble. It's on the same level. And obviously with the healing, automatically that you don't even need to worry about it, makes it that much better. Next, Misery. Vampiric Touch also applies Shadow Word Pain to the target. Obviously, this is giving you easier dot apply, which is giving you more pressure to spread. This is excellent. Now, next, Psychic Horror. This whole row is pretty much all CC. This is definitely the preferred one right now. I do see some people using Mind Bomb, but this is definitely the preferred choice. Terrify the target in place, stunning them for 4 seconds. They have so much CC for a caster, it's actually insane. They have a Silence, they have a Fear, and they have a Stun with this. So they basically have one of everything. It's fantastic. And only a 45-second cooldown. Next, Auspicious Spirits. Your shadowy apparitions now deal 15% increased damage and generate 2 insanity. It's a passive ability. Obviously, it makes it much easier. Now, I was talking about Damnation before. This is really one of the main reasons why they've become so much better. In BFA, they had a lot of ramping for their dots and casting dots. It was really stupid. I don't know why they ever did that, but this really, really helps them out. So it only has a 45-second cooldown. Instantly afflicts the target with Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague. Now, also, that's also, not only is it giving your dots immediately, which is doing damage, 2 of those 3 also heal you, give you passive healing. So just to apply them all immediately is definitely the way to go. And lastly, Ancient Madness. Void Form increases your critical strike chance by 30% for 15 seconds, reducing by 2% every second. Void Form is one of the reasons why their burst comes up strong. Their Void Form really is what it's all about right now for the bigger burst. So you definitely want this for the increased critical strike chance. Now I'm going to go over the 3 PvP talents. Now normally Fade is it's meaningless, but Greater Fade is a huge deal. So Fade Out, removing all threat, increasing your movement speed by 50%, so now you're getting increased mobility, and causing most melee, ranged, and spells to miss you. It's almost like an evasion. Last 4 seconds or until you take hostile action. If you click this, you shouldn't be taking hostile action. This is for you to reset. Because it only says hostile action. You could heal, that's not hostile. Next, Thought Steal. Peer into the mind of the enemy attempting to steal a known spell. If stolen, the victim cannot cast that spell for 20 seconds. Obviously, this is such a huge deal. You could really ruin someone's whole burst or their whole healing by doing this. And lastly, Void Shift. You and the currently target party or raid member swap health percentages, increasing the lower health percentage of the two to 25% if below that amount. This works really, really good with Rogue. There's like a whole combination with this. When you do Void Shift, you basically both get full health out of it. So it's excellent. This works with multiple classes. I'm sorry about that, and it's definitely the way to go. So now that I've covered both the talents for Shadow and Discipline, we're gonna get into the covenants, races, and all that good stuff now. So let's start off with the races. Okay, so as I just mentioned, we're going to start off with the races. If you've been keeping up with my other videos, you should know by now if human is an option, you pick human, and the main reason is for every man for himself. It removes all stun effects. What this is essentially doing is you don't have to get the PvP trinket like the Gladiator Medallion to get you out of CCs. Instead, you could get 2 damage trinkets, so increase your burst. You could also stack the Gladiator's Medallion and then have 2 of them, but they do share somewhat of a cooldown, so just keep that in mind. So for the Horde, this is the one and only time that you actually can't be an orc, which is always the clear-cut choice, just like human. So the next best option is going to be undead, and the reason being is Will of Forsaken. It removes any charm, fear, and sleep effect. This does not share a cooldown with the trinket, so you're basically getting 2 ways to get out of things as long as it's not an actual stun. So they are definitely the best option for Horde. So now we're going to go over the covenants, because basically this is what gets you your conduits and soulbinds and all that stuff, and also 2 passive abilities that come with default for picking this covenant. So please pay close attention here. First I'm going to go over Shadow, but Shadow and Discipline both pick Venthyr, and their Soulbind build is exactly the same. So I'm not going to go over it twice for Discipline, so even if you're in this video just for the Discipline Priest, and I'm going over Shadow, please just pay attention during the Soulbinds and the passive abilities, because they're going to be exactly the same. So the first ability that you get by default for picking Venthyr is Door of Shadows. When through the shadows appearing at the target location, it's basically like a blink and a warlock portal put together. So this is giving you additional mobility to get out of a bad situation. It only has a 1-minute recharge, and this is definitely a great ability to help out Priest. And now the next default ability that you get is Mind Games. If you've seen any sort of Priest video, you know that this ability is top notch. This is one of the best default abilities that you can get, and I'm going to go over it. So Assault an enemy's mind, dealing shadow damage and briefly reversing the perception of reality. So what this is actually doing, it's switching the damage into healing. So what it does is reverse damage and healing generate up to 20 insanity. So again, reverses the damage that you're dealing, and healing restores up to 4% of mana. So it's basically just reversing all the damage that you're doing and converts it into healing onto yourself. So it's really, really good, and it basically will get you back to full health, almost full health, and it's just an excellent move. It's good for Shadow and Discipline. So this is the main reason why you pick Venthyr is Mind Games. So again, this is going to be the well. First off, you're going to pick Naja the Mistblade, that's the chosen person right there. This Soulbind Tree is exactly how it's going to look for both Shadow and Discipline. The reason why those are empty slots right there those are the conduits that you're going to fill in. That's where the differences come in. That's why I didn't fill it and I left it like that. That way you can see what this looks like. So first I'm going to go over the Soulbind abilities because they're the same, and then I'm going to go over the individual conduits. So these are all the Shadow Priest abilities, both Soulbinds and conduits. When I go over Discipline Priest, we're only going to go over conduits because the Soulbind abilities are exactly the same as I mentioned. I'm going to start off going from the left top all the way to the right side. So first up, we have Agent of Chaos. Door of Shadows disorients all nearby enemies at the target's location for 6 seconds when you're appearing. That's why I said it's like a warlock portal, because you kind of pop out. So then when you pop out, if anyone's within that range, it's going to disorient them. Next up, we have Familiar Predicaments. The duration of incoming interrupts, snare, and root effects are reduced by 25%. Shouldn't have to explain how good this is for PvP. Next up, we have Thrill Seeker. While in combat, you gain a stack of Thrill Seeker every 2 seconds or 4 stacks on killing an enemy. At 40 stacks, Thrill Seeker is consumed to grant you Euphoria, increasing your haste by 20% for 10 seconds. Thrill Seeker decays rapidly while you are not in combat. So again, the increased haste is going to increase your reduce your casting time. So it's a great additional piece. So the next up thing is either charitable soul or light inspiration. You can choose either one. They're both equally as good, so I'm going to go over both of them quick. So first up, charitable soul. Casting power word shield on an ally also shields you for 10% of the amount for 10 seconds. And then you have light inspiration. Desperate Prayer heals you for an additional 5% of your maximum health over 5 seconds. So they're both equally as good, and they're both good choices. You can choose whichever one you want. Next up, we have Clear Mind. Dispel Magic, Purify, and Mass Dispel cost 20% reduced mana. That's probably one of your highest cost mana moves, so this is a good thing to have. Next, we have Mind Devour. Mind Blast deals an additional 5% damage and has a 10% chance to make your next Devouring Plague cost no insanity. This is great. Making it cost no insanity. Obviously, Devouring Plague is not only a good dot, but it's a good passive heal, so if it basically costs nothing, it is excellent to have. And next up, we have our final two. We have Haunting Apparitions. Your shadowy apparitions deal 5% more damage. That's a pretty decent increase. And lastly, this is the clear-cut winner for your legendary item. So what it does is, while you have Shadow Word, Pain, Devouring Plague, and Vampiric Touch active on the same target, your Mind Blast deals 30% more damage. With Damnation, you automatically apply all three of these on the target at once, so you can instantly start Mind Blasting that target. So that's why it's the preferred choice right now. So now that we went over that, I'm going to just go over the conduits for Discipline Priest. So for Discipline Priest, you're going to have 4 abilities I'm going to go over, the conduit abilities, and your 1 legendary item that you're going to choose. So first up, we have Translucent Image. For the first 5 seconds of Fade, you take 5% less damage. Now, this actually gives you a reason to use Fade. Obviously, Shadow picks Greater Fade, and Discipline doesn't, so this actually gives you a good reason to pick it. Next, we have Mental Recovery. Psychic Scream ends affected target's movement speed is reduced by 40% for 5 seconds. Next up, Shattered Perceptions. Mind Game lasts an additional 0.0 seconds and deals an additional 20% damage and healing. So it's not really, I don't even know why they put that there, because it doesn't last any longer, but it's increasing the total damage or healing. Next up, we have Exaltation. Rapture duration is increased by 2 seconds, and its power word Shield enhancement is increased by 10%. That's a nice increase for absorption. And lastly, this is the clear-cut legendary item that you're going to want to choose. Power word Shield instantly heals the target and reflects 30% of the damage absorbed. That's huge, because depending if they're bursting you heavy, that goes right back to the target, and that could really, really hurt them. So that's going to be it for today's video covering Priest. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you could, I would greatly appreciate any sub to my channel. And as always, guys, thank you for tuning in.